Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Ain binti Ahmad Kasasi. In order to improve customer service management with an aim of improving performance, economy, and productivity, as well as accountability in both administrative and financial aspects, the new public management has been established to encourage changes in administrative policy through the implementation of private sector best practice. The public management in Malaysia has reformed to be more proactive, effective, and efficient as the adoption of concept of new public management in the 1980s. This new adoption has changed the operation of the civil service, which is the customers is their priority. The public sector's role from that of an engine of the country's economic growth and development has changed to the facilitator of the private sector and the service provider to the public. In the 1990s, reform were stimulated by increasingly restricted resources and proliferation of demands in public expenditure. The former Malaysia Secretary General proposed that line managers be given more control and choice, while modifications in organizational structures and responsibilities move accountability away from task and process improvement and towards service delivery. The modified budgeting system, the micro accounting system, and a new internal auditing system were the primary reforms implemented. The new public financial management reforms in developed world, which is replacing conventional bureaucratic structures with more decision-making decentralization. It concentrates on accounting management and budgeting approach used in the private sector and the systematic use of information technology to enhance decision process and provide more accountability. Corruption is the significant problem that involves an unfair practice that harms the government's integrity and undermines the economy. The Malaysian government created the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission (MACC) to monitor and punish corruption charges in both the public and private sectors. Malaysia is one of the countries predicted to have corruption problem. In the 2013 CPI shows an improvement of corruption issue in Malaysia.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Noor Almira Shaniza binti Muhammad Saleh, and I'm going to present about the main issue that we have been found in financial management, which is corruption. Corruption has always been the most problematic issue in financial management. The first case that indeed involved in corrupt practices is 1MDB. One Malaysia Development Fund Berhad was established to boost up the development of the country's economy in a long-term strategy and to enhance partnerships globally, as well as to attract more foreign direct investment. The main corrupt practices in this case were embezzlement, money laundering, and bribery. This is a political scandal involving the former sixth Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak, and it is a sovereign wealth fund controlled by the Ministry of Finance. In 2015, 1MDB came under investigation for alleged impropriety after investigators traced transfer of $700 million into Najib's personal bank accounts. The government barred Najib from leaving the country, and the police had the warrant to seize Najib's cash money and valuable items that were found where he had more than 12,000 pieces of jewelry, 423 valuable watches, and 567 handbags made up of 37 luxury brands amounting to between 900 million ringgit and 1.1 billion ringgit from residential units linked to him and his wife Rosma Mansour. Najib was then arrested under the charges of criminal breach of trust, money laundering, and abuse of power, as well as involvement in corrupt practices including Jolo and Eric Tan, or known as Fat Eric, that were also charged with money laundering. 1MDB scandal was covered up by the Malaysian government, where this was achieved in 2015 and 2016 by the removal from office of key officials including the Deputy Prime Minister, 4 other ministers, and the Attorney General, and some lower level officials who were voluntarily prepared to expose those behind the scandals and evidence of corruption, as well as support an open-ended inquiry. Investigations of 1MDB were done in wide range, with further charges being brought against those who were involved in the embezzlement, bribery, and money laundering that include Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, United Arab Emirates, and United Kingdom. Next, the second issue is Sabah State Water Department's JANS corruption case. It is a state government agency under the Ministry of Infrastructure Development, which was previously known as Ministry of Works and Communication Sabah. JANS operates under the State Ordinance Water Supply Enactment 2003 to supply treated water to the Sabah State community. There was a widespread investigation that were done by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission (MACC) regarding to the allegations for abuse of power inside the Sabah State Water Department, then resulting in the arrest of 2 senior officers who were involved in the scandal, along with the confiscation of 3 million ringgit. MACC had the warrant to seize their properties from the official's house, which also including 20 kilogram of jewelries, luxury brand watches, 94 branded handbags, 9 luxury cars, foreign currency, other assets within and outside of the country, and folders containing 127 land grants of the suspected 2 officers. After the whole year investigation were done throughout the years, they came to the total confiscation, which increased from 53.7 million ringgit to 114.5 million ringgit in cash. The former director of Sabah Water Department, Awang Muhammad Tahir, his wife Fauziah Puit, and the department's former deputy director, Lim Lambang, who were collectively faced 37 counts of misappropriating infrastructure funds, the involvement of corrupt practices of total amount 61.48 million ringgit in cash and bank savings, as well as unlawful possession of luxury products. They were also under the investigation for alleged abuse of power and money laundering that linked to contracts for federal funded projects given out by the Sabah State Water Department since 2010. In further investigation of this shocking corruption case, they revealed that there was a trail of money in foreign banks leading to Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. This case has been considered as the largest ever confiscation by MACC in the country's corruption history, and this is one of the reasons why Sabah has become one of the poorest states in Malaysia despite its vast rich resources. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Atira Wafa and I will present the causes of the issues and problems. The first causes of the issue is a flawed management system and lack of accountability. The desire to survive can overtake organizational motivations, and the wreckage of accountability failures can be found throughout the landscape of organizational history. We do not have to seek for example to see how long the list can be. Accountability is a compelling explanation for the issues surrounding the 1MDB corruption affair. Indeed, 1MDB's internal controls over spending, lending, and investment were poor, resulting in a flawed governance framework that might be regarded as a failure of accountability management. The AGM's report on 1MDB's in 2016 emphasized this. It discovered that management procedures were in violation of the Companies Act of 1965, the Malaysian Code on Corporate Governance, and international corporate governance best practices. Key decision made by a written board resolution outside of a board of directors meeting and not subject to the scrutiny of a board meeting were among the examples provided in the AGM's report. The board was also supplied misleading and inaccurate information on numerous occasions. Some major financial and investment choices were made without consulting or obtaining the board's permissions. The absence of an investment subcommittee of the board of directors with a remit to examine both funding and investment risks for a particular project or debt issue demonstrate that management and the board of directors did not conduct feasibility studies and a proper evaluation process where these were required. Furthermore, according to the AGM's report, the keeping of records and documents in 1MDB is not satisfactory and contains several faults. With such a loose control system in place, it is unsurprising that no financial checks were conducted to detect and prevent money laundering. Next, the second causes of the issue is abusing of power and lack of integrity. Individual and social integrity are connected in combating corruption in society. A variety of common circumstances test our integrity and ethical judgment, such as jumping a line to using your position to offer someone an unfair advantage over others. This can be related to the case Sabah State Water Department corruption, where there is misconduct at the top and by leading politicians. The events surrounding the Sabah State Water Department corruption can be explained by a question of abusing of power and lack of integrity by the 2 senior officers in the state agency. As these individuals are often well off and enjoy numerous benefits linked with their high office, their corruption is not due to a lack of money or a need to support their family. Instead, greed is viewed as a major motivator. This can be seen where there is an objection concerning the improper distribution of water development project contracts in the department, which led to an investigation by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission. Both suspects are tied to 38 different firms since 2010, according to the investigation by 70 Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission staff in 2015. The department director is linked to 17 companies owned by his brothers and proxies, while his deputy is linked to 21 companies controlled by his family members. Almost all of the state's water development projects were granted to corporations related to both accused. Since 2002, the department has been accused of not auditing its infrastructure projects. Thus, this issue explains that the corruption arises in Sabah State Water Department because of the unethical behavior from both parties who allegedly abused their power and lack of integrity.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Hisham binti Mahmud, and today I would like to present about the implication of the issue. To begin with, the 1MDB affair has highlighted the importance of effective internal auditing and managing in the public situation in engaging with the big investment program. Other than that, banks in Malaysia and other countries should make an extensive check when transfer sum of significant money to ensure that the fund that's transferred is from the unapproved project. One of the outcome of 1MDB controversy is that the company became insolvent in 2016 because it failed to meet the critical debt service obligation. Following that, the Malaysian government stepping in to pay the debt, which cost 6.98 billion ringgit in 2016 and 2017. The next significant effect of the difficulty is erosion of faith in public to the politician and government institutions. A poll of 1,000 Malaysian that has been made by the civil society organisation, which is Centre for a Better Tomorrow in February 2018, just before the general election, found that only 16% trusted Malaysian politicians and 29% trusted the federal government. In another context, the financial journalists also to be blamed in their role to covering the spectacular event like the 1MDB crisis. As example, The Age, which is the most popular business and financial paper, have stopped by the government for 3 months starting in July 2015. The implication of the Sabah Water Department corruption, the federal government has enacted a law with a new law mandating any development project costing more than 500 million to involve the country Auditor General and the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, known as MACC. The majority of Sabahan criticised the corruption issue, claiming that several federal government grants intended to improve the state poor water facilities were instead taken by unscrupulous state officials.
The first recommendation is the media as a tool against corruption. The media can act as a force against corruption in ways that are both tangible and also intangible. The tangible ways in which journalism can serve to curb corruption can take a variety of forms. Most spectacular among them is when corrupt bureaucrats or public office holders are impeached, prosecuted, and also forced to resign after their mistake has been exposed to the public. However, journalism also acts directly to curb corruption in other less spectacular but equally important ways. Reporting, for example, may prompt public bodies to launch formal investigation into the allegations of corruption. Furthermore, news accounts disseminate the findings of public anti-corruption bodies, thus reinforcing the legitimacy of these bodies, which interested parties who hold power can meddle in their work. Furthermore, the political turbulence that follows the officer of high public officers helps increase the standard of public accountability, thereby providing another deterrent to major corruption by others in the future. Sometimes too, journalist stories can play a critical role in reinforcing the effectiveness of public anti-corruption bodies, even when the stories in question are not strictly speaking. Simply reporting in a regular and detailed way on the work and findings of these bodies can reinforce public scrutiny of them. Hence, the independence of such bodies from vested interests within the power structure that might otherwise be tempted to interfere in their work. The second recommendation is to review the anti-corruption efforts. According to SIDIC, in 2010, Malaysia has an elaborate set of institutional framework to deal with corruption. There are numerous institutions established by the government with the aim to build and strengthen the anti-corruption infrastructure, namely the Anti-Corruption Agency (ACA) in 1967, the Public Complaint Bureau (PCB), the Auditor General's Office, the Public Accounts Committee, Police, Attorney General's Office, Customs and Malaysian Administration Modernisation and Management Planning Unit (MAMPU). However, these strategies have failed to give significant impacts on corruption. Apart from the ignorance in addressing the causes of corruption within this country, as mentioned previously, Yusof in 2012 had also argued that the failure of anti-corruption initiatives in producing positive outcomes is due to duplication problems. It was argued that it has become a requirement for every appointed leaders to introduce new plans in preventing corruption within the country. From one point, it would reflect the seriousness of these leaders in preventing corruptions. However, there would be times where the introduced effort would be without thorough preparations, hence resulting in a number of duplication made on this anti-corruption initiative. For instance, it was argued that there are two different agencies in Malaysia that are responsible for implementing and also monitoring corruption prevention initiatives. Malaysia's performance in worldwide opinion polls on misconduct has remained low in recent years. With the rising centralization of political power, most of those systems which were established to identify and penalize wrongdoings were steadily undermined and eventually dismantled. Only until the scope and fight against corruption in the 1MDB investment fund became known publicly to civilized society and the international media did voters become sufficiently upset to vote out the political party which had been in the government for more than 60 years.
In conclusion, the amount of accountability and corruption are connected since there is a negative association between two. Most of Malaysians are aware that corruption is a very significant problem and a terrible crime that affects all the aspects in this country, mainly the financial aspect. Therefore, corruption needs to be handled efficiently to ensure the reduction and prevention of the issue.